Öncelikle hoş geldiniz. Bugünkü değerli misafirimizin bize yapacak olduğu sunumu izlemeye. Takdimi kendisinin de rahat anlayabilmesi adına ve bir şeyi, çünkü farklı şehirler, farklı eyaletler var. Bir şeyi yanlış söylememek adına okuyarak yapmak istiyorum. İngilizce olarak. Professor Herman Jenkins, he is my professor during my time in Houston, Texas. He was born in Glenwood, West Virginia. After completing his School of Medicine education at Universitesi School of Medicine, Nashville, in 1970, he completed his internship at UCLA Center, Los Angeles, in 1970 and 71. Then he completed his basic surgery residency in the same place in 1971 and 72. He finished his residency program on otolaryngology at 1977. He joined fellowship program on otology, neurotology at the University of Zurich between 1979 and 1980. Then between 1981 and 2000, he worked as associate professor, vice chairman, and interim chair at Baylor Medical College in Houston, Texas. Then he moved to Colorado University as head of the otolaryngology department in 2000 and worked until 2022 in the same position. He works on otology, neurotology. Herman Jenkins has held various positions in many international scientific societies. He has many international awards in his career. Professor Jenkins has hundreds of articles, 34 books or book chapters published since 1968. In 1999, during my residency period on otorhinolaryngology, I spent 6 months as observer of him at Baylor Medical College in Houston. He was a great teacher for me. I want to thank to him one more time for this, and also I thank to him accepting my invitation to visit my clinic and give us this lecture on how to build a successful academic career. He is really very successful in academics. I would like to invite him to give his lecture. Please.
Thank you, Tayyar. It's a pleasure to be here. When he asked me, I told him I was coming to Istanbul. I thought we'd get together for dinner, which we've done on occasions before. And he told me he'd like to have me give a lecture. Well, my response is, what do I talk about? The work that I've done is fairly isolated in otology and inner mechanics, things of that nature that we've worked in our laboratories, which the majority of you have no interest in that. So trying to figure out what I could draw on, I decided to really talk about my career in terms of how a career can be developed, some of the important things where I really did well, some of the things I really messed up, those type of things. But just sort of show you the evolution over the last several decades. So bear with me. Some of this is talking about my personal life. I apologize for that, but it sort of adds to why I've made some of the moves that I did and what I felt was important in terms of developing that. I'm not quite as preeminent as Tayyar has mentioned, but it's been a pleasure all these years to do this. So basically, I titled this as How in the World Did I End Up in Istanbul? The Evolution of an Academic Career in Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery. I think the rationale for this is I am now 52 years post-graduating from medical school. And that's been a long time, longer than I really believe. I certainly don't look at it when I see in the mirror anyway. But I think that the things that I've come to terms with is there are certain things that people should do in their career and really to sort of maximize their potential. Basically, in the last 52 years, I've spent these years at UCLA, the Baylor College of Medicine, the University of Colorado. And sort of a third of my career have been at these institutions. In the last 21 years, I've been chair of the Department of Otolaryngology. I stepped down from that position about 6 months ago, and now I'm an emeritus professor. And with this, I just wanted to sort of dispense my advice, what I've developed over the years. You can go to sleep if you wish. It's not a problem. I won't get insulted. But just sort of follow this with me. We're talking about the early years, and we're going way back here. This is my family. I grew up on a farm in West Virginia, which is an underdeveloped part of the U.S. And my parents, they really had very little formal education. 2 to 4 years of elementary school, and that was it. But they understood the value of education, and they had a large family. As you can see, all my brothers and sisters here, there were 11 children there. I'm the one that's here, the cute one with the reindeer sweater. Basically, I was number 10 of 11. Now, 11 children growing up at a hillside farm in West Virginia had minimal chance of getting out of there. And yet, we got the ball rolling. And I attribute a lot of this initially to my oldest brother. And he sort of drove the family. The parents they were too busy keeping things together. So he sort of took charge of many aspects of our life. And he really helped the people behind him. This was a time, my parents were born at the turn of the 20th century, 1904, 1905. And this was a time that really education in college, etc., for the older ones was there, but not many people really did that. He went on to college, had a couple years, had to drop out for financial reasons. He actually came and taught at our local elementary school, taught some of my brothers and sisters. But really, he sort of became a patriarch for the family, pushing all the siblings to do this. And so when I came up, I knew I was going to college. The others didn't, they weren't sure they were going to graduate from high school. And my mother kept encouraging, keep going, you do this. And so out of this, of the 11 children, 8 graduated from college, 6 got master's degree, went into primary education fields, teaching, etc. I was the only doctorate in the family. And a lot of that was attributed to him, and also my mother, who was pushing. She didn't know exactly what she was pushing for, but she knew it was important. And that's what happens to a lot of us. We know things are important, and why we're doing it is sort of not clear at times, but I think it is very helpful with that. This is the one-room elementary school that I went to. And all of my siblings went to this. It was about a half-a-mile walk from our house, and we said it was uphill both ways, so we struggled to get there, but it actually was a very easy thing to do. And this is class, it's not my class, this is the total student body. And you can see here again, I am, my brother is here, and a sister is here. But basically, we had about 15 to 17 children in the whole school. And of those, my family really drove forward. The others chose not to really go much beyond high school. But for some reason, my family sort of clicked, and I think it was due to some of the older people. I attended a local high school and college. It was cheap to go to the college there. Well, I found that early on, I was thinking in high school, I was thinking about being a doctor. And I knew primary care doctor that we had, so we'd go, whenever we got a sore throat, he'd give us a pink and white pill. I had no idea what they were, probably aspirin, but really we didn't have much in the way of medical care. And the faculty members who were sort of mentors to me in high school really discouraged me from thinking about medical school. They say, it's not really feasible, it just takes too long, it's too much money. Well, it does take a long time and is very expensive, but I think it's worthwhile. In college, probably the first thing, the first event that I really moved out there, out of my comfort zone, was a trip to Europe. I had not been more than 200 miles away from home, and I was studying German for 2 years in college. We had to take a foreign language. And the German professor arranged a trip to Germany for the summer. They got us jobs. We couldn't afford to travel in Europe for a summer, so they got us jobs. And I, along with my roommate from college, went to Germany. I worked in the post office in Frankfurt, clearing shelves and binding it up and sending it down for people to deliver. I did this for about 10 weeks, and then I traveled for 2 weeks. And this was really a major moving point in my career in terms of trusting myself. I was the only person who really had any German, and I had minimal, just a few words. I could get directions. I could order coffee in a restaurant, things like that. But I became the translator for the group. I had to go out there and really interact, which put myself out there, which I had never done before. You're talking about a kid, a junior family member, really not having to do that, just really spending the summers working on the farm, etc. But this was really a major turning point in that at the end of this, we took a trip down through Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Italy, and France, making a swing there. And it's fascinating. And it gave me a travel bug, which has not stopped since then, which is one of the reasons I'm here. Initially, I started college. I was going to become a chemist because I'd been told the doctor is impossible. And I became bored with my third year of chemistry, and I decided to switch to pre-medicine, and then got accepted to Vanderbilt Medical School, which was really a very good school in the country. I had an interview with a local physician that had graduated from there. I think the interview really got me in more than anything else. My grades were okay, but it was coming from a very mediocre state college and was not impressive for anyone there. But I think he gave a good recommendation to me, which really got me into the school. My performance in medical school, mediocre. Basically, what I found was that I was a farm boy. I lived in the small towns. I'd taken care of myself. I was comfortable where I was coming from. But all of a sudden, I was thrown into a new social situation in a top-notch university. I was competing against students from the Ivy Leagues, from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, some of the best universities in the world. These were people that I had to compete with, which for me, socializing myself was a task, and to really be part of, to compete on that level, I struggled for quite some time. But as I say, luck intervened. During our first year of medical school, the university had taken away the student laboratories of physiology. We normally go spend 2 or 3 days a week in the laboratories doing experiments. Instead, they sent us to a research experience in the laboratories of the investigators. And I was assigned to the otolaryngology research laboratory, and this was a 3-month experience. And I was assigned to work with the time we had heard about some of his work. He had worked with Laurenti, a very well-known neurophysiologist. He was a Spaniard, had been in the US about 10 years at that point. that I was assigned to work in his laboratory, which is probably the next major event that happened. This is Vicente Honrubia. This is Paul Ward. Paul Ward was our chairman of the department, and Vicente Honrubia was the research director. I spent the 3 months rotation there, and then I had selective time for the rest of the year. I went into the laboratories 1 day a week to work there, and then did the next summer there. So that I was having a research experience with Honrubia. And then he and Paul Ward moved to UCLA halfway through my medical school career. And I went out there and worked in the laboratories during the summers. We had all of our summers off. They gave us a small stipend that we could survive on. So I went to UCLA for the summers to work in the laboratories. And really, it was, this was sort of a major turning point for me. After that, I did 5 years of residency, which out of this experience, we got 5 publications and 2 national presentations. In the 60s, that was unheard of. Medical students didn't really produce much. Today, if you don't have 6 or 8 publications to apply for medical school or apply for residency, it's hard to get a residency in otolaryngology. But back then, having a few publications was really unheard of. And that was because of these 2 people that really started pushing me. And then after that, I did the 5-year residency at UCLA with them. And then I stayed on to join the faculty. And with that, they again pushed me to do an NIH K07 grant award, which was a grant that paid basically for research training. It paid part of the salary, but basically you gave 75% of your time to research training. And this was really the next phase of my career that I think made a difference. And this, again, that I keep pointing out, is these 2 people are pushing this, pushing me to think outside the box, to really strive for something else. But I think the other thing is I had a hunger in here. I didn't want to stay on the farm in West Virginia. Being a dirt farmer, barely making by, I wanted something more for myself. Going to Europe gave me that. Working with these 2 gentlemen gave me that. I think that really made a difference. Is I had the hunger, they saw that, and they started pushing me in directions that were outside my comfort zone. And I think that is the thing that you in your careers need to be thinking about doing, moving on to keep enhancing your career and expanding your horizons. Okay, and then in the early years, Vicente Honrubia and his wife Dania here really welcomed me in as a young medical student into their family. I became sort of a member of the family. They had new children, one was 2 and one just born when I met them. And I became a member of the family. And this really persisted for several decades. And I'm still regarded that way. When I see them on occasion now, it's still like seeing family members rather than a great friend. But their input to my career really was invaluable and really spurred me along to do that. I joined the faculty afterwards, after residency, and over that period of time, when I finished working with the residency, etc., I had 35 publications. And this is working with a group of scientists in the vestibular field. And we have 5 of us working together. We would write 5 papers, each person taking responsibility for a paper, and then passing them around, and really everyone profiting from that. But Vicente was also instrumental in arranging a fellowship for me in Zurich, Switzerland. He and Professor Ugo Fisch were fellows together at the University of Chicago, and Paul Ward was a faculty member there. And basically, as a favor to Honrubia, Fisch agreed to take me on as a fellow, and he promised that Honrubia that he would train me. And really, it was a great experience with him. I was his first full-time American fellow. I spent a year there in Zurich. My responsibility was to go to the OR, sit at his elbow, ask questions. I did some procedures. I did about 3 mid-fossa procedures, several basic skull preparatory surgeries, etc., so that my skills were honed in. That when I went home, I felt comfortable going on with these procedures. They also gave me the opportunity to do research and write, and we ended up having several more publications from that year. So this was sort of the next influence there, because he was sort of talking about, he offered me a position to stay on there and told me I could be a citizen of the world, which I sort of like that, and I sort of feel that way in many ways. But that in terms of getting outside of my comfort zone, moving to those directions, that those potentials were there. And he, as along with the Honduran War, really emphasized that for me. Now, as we moved into the middle stages of the career, I returned to UCLA in 1980. Following the fellowship, and I started neurotology practice, surgical practice there at UCLA. This was from scratch. They had never done any neurotology. Unfortunately, the House Group, which is an internationally renowned group, particularly in those days, were 10 miles across town in Los Angeles. And I realized quickly it was going to take a long time to build a neurotology practice, trying to compete with about 10 well-known, internationally known neurotologists across town. It was shortly after I returned that the neurologist at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas, moved on to a chair position in Oklahoma, and they were searching for a neurologist. A friend of mine from the residency days was on the faculty there at Baylor, and he suggested my name, and I went down to see it, and the offer was too good to turn down. Rather than spending 10 years building a practice to compete with the House Group, a practice was already built there. The person who left was a neurologist. He had already done a lot of practice building and had to establish. So I sort of walked into this, but not only did I have a practice ready built, but also was able to get funds to establish a vestibular laboratory and to hire research faculty, which helped me then move into the next phase of my career. And I was able to generate clinical funds from doing vestibular testing in the laboratory. There was actually clinical testing. And this really enabled me to travel internationally, to present work at various meetings, etc. So it's sort of looking at, I'm being an opportunist, which we'll talk about that here in a moment. And then shortly after I got there, I started getting offers to come and chair departments or to come and interview for this. And I interviewed probably nearly 20 chairs over the period of time that I was at Baylor. And the reason I didn't take it is the job I had at Baylor was better than most of the chairs' jobs in the country. Granted, you were running your own department, but you didn't have the resources, et cetera, that I had at Baylor. And it was something that I just sort of would go talk to them, was listening, but I really decided to stay at Baylor during that time. After being there 19 years, I realized that if I was going to really be a chair, run my own program, it was time to move on. And at that point, the job at the University of Colorado opened, and I've remained there for the last 21 plus years to chair that department, build it. When I moved into the department, it was at the bottom. Departments go through their highs and they hit the trough, and they hire someone else, it goes up and down again. We were at a very low trough at that point, and yet I thought, oh, 5 years we'll be in the top. No, it took 10 years to really get it there, and then another 10 years of solidifying the researchers, the research support, the training, all those type of things. So that's where we are today in my career. Basically, this is just some photographs. This was back in 1987. Was my first one of my first international trips. Newton Coker, who was a neurologist, worked with me. He and I went to China. And we had this Professor Liu spend a year with us. as a visiting or an international scholar at Baylor, and then he set up this trip for us. It was a fascinating trip. We go over there. We presented at about 5 institutions, different hospitals, different universities, and really gave us more of a flair of travel. I've also identified, this is the teacher of Pansusuk. She is a neurologist in Bangkok. I met her on a trip to Nepal. They needed someone to come from our hospital to Nepal to talk. I just moved there. I didn't have a practice and couldn't really see patients yet, so I volunteered to go. So I spent a week in Nepal, met her, and then she was the president of a group called Hearing International, and I joined them, and we have had meetings every year to 2 years in various developing countries. The idea here is not to do surgery, but the idea is to teach and to go in and upgrade the systems, both in test-wise, in the clinical skills, etc. And that has been going on long-term, and we're scheduled to be in China again this year, and we'll see what happens in the next few months. I also have attended a course in Bangkok every year, which is a temple bone drilling course that I give lectures and help support the efforts there. But this has afforded me opportunities to see exciting sites, as you can see the Great Wall of China here, but also have a coffee in the Grand Bazaar here. And those are the type of things that are really, I have enjoyed tremendously in my career. So why Istanbul? The President Özal, your 8th president, he had some sort of carcinoma. I don't know the details of that, but he was treated at the Methodist Hospital and Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. And while he was there, he has established at that point a medical school in Malatya, Turkey, which we have a notable example having been on the faculty there, retired. And he made a deal with Debeki. Michael Debeki was Lebanese, and he made a deal that to really get this university, this medical school up and running, he wanted to increase the skills, the knowledge, etc., to sort of give them a jump start rather than spending years getting there themselves. So he arranged with Debeki that they would rotate physicians and nurses to Baylor for an in-depth experience to improve the quality of this fledgling medical school. 4 fellows rotated in otolaryngology or in neurology with me, and then others did in general otolaryngology. And 3 of these 4 today lead programs here in Turkey and are prominent internationally in the field. And Tayyar is one of these people. And we have continued to have a long-term relationship. It was a friendship that developed, not only a mentor-mentee relationship, but it's a friendship that developed with each of these gentlemen that has resulted in me visiting here, being invited many times to speak, etc. But it's really added a lot of depth to my career and something that I've been very proud of. So what is the Visiting International Scholars Program? What we did is we established an in-depth experience for physicians abroad, basically helping developing countries to improve their level of health care, and also provide experience that allowed exposure for something for physicians that cannot find this in their home institution at that time. We've had people from many different countries. There have been 8 people from Turkey there, several from Greece, 4 from Iran, and lately we've had 7 from Thailand. But these are people that I've spent time with, and as a result, it's had me traveling internationally. For instance, I've been to Iran 4 times, which many of you probably have not been to Iran, even though it's next door. But and most people think I'm crazy in the States. What are you doing there? But it's been a very fulfilling experience going to each of these countries, see the institutions, meet with the people, and I have enjoyed it tremendously. Fellows are accepted as observers in the clinical setting. They're not permitted to have any hands-on experience. The laws in the states do not permit that unless you are certified by the states. They observe the operating rooms and the clinics. They can practice drilling in the typical labs or in the other laboratories. They work in the research labs. Only one of our fellows from Turkey was allowed to actually operate. He spent an extra 6 months as a student of Zlolu. He actually operated with me. We got special permission for that, that he was able to do that. Now, in terms of our residency training, basically our program in otolaryngology head and neck surgery is a 5-year program. There's a caseload performed that's prescribed by the university, by the Board of Otolaryngology. It's overseen by the Residency Review Committee. You have to certain number of minimal cases to be qualified to become board certified and claim that you are an otolaryngologist. Otolaryngology has also become a very competitive specialty. We usually have 500 to 600 applicants for our 4 positions, but they're applying to about 70 universities each. There are only 320 slots, so you can imagine if you've got 600 applicants, a lot of people go unmatched, and these are people from the upper third of their classes that have published, etc. So it is a very competitive field in the States at this point. In the training, the first year is basically 6 months of otolaryngology, then 6 months of other fields, including general surgery, emergency medicine, anesthesia, radiology, things that are sort of related to otolaryngology that they need some in-depth experience in, but the main focus is training in otolaryngology today. In the years 2 to 5, there are clinical rotations with the graduate experiences in terms of the type of cases they're allowed to do, and they are required to have a hands-on research experiences, which it can be up to 6 months of those 5 years. Case materials. In hospitals, university hospitals, it's usually a private hospital setting at this point, and every patient is assigned a physician that they recognize as their primary care physician. I see them in clinic, I treat them, I operate on them, I see them in follow-up. They recognize me as their physician. Yet, this is our main source for training residents as well. So that's where it gets a little touchy there. Our private patients are used as teaching cases. In our university hospitals, we don't have indigent patients. We have the safety net indigent hospitals there, which our residents rotate through. But the major bulk of their experience in our system is at our private hospital. They also go to a veterans hospital and a children's hospital. But most of it is spent in the University Children's, where all the patients are private patients. We inform the patients about this. We explain to them it's advantageous for them to have it. So you've got someone available 24/7 at the beck and call should there be any problem. It's not trying to find your doctor to operate on you that may have gone to the mountains to ski that day. It's had someone available there, and this is really adds to the quality of your experience there, that you could have someone like that that's really watching over you carefully. And the other thing, we assure them that we are staying as the attending through all the most important parts, and if necessary throughout the entire procedure, supervising, doing, etc. as far as that goes. The other thing is we explain to them that surgery is a team sport. Basically, one person cannot generally do a case. You need assistance. And if you're on that side of the table and I'm over here and I can't see over there, you do that part of the case, the cut, whatever is needed. Then we do this really as a group, there are trainees involved, but it's graduated trainees. The people who are doing the cutting have more sophisticated training than the people who are just there holding retractors. So this is all explained to the patients. Some people don't like it, but we tell them that's what going to a university hospital involves. Going to private hospitals, you can have experience. It may or not be this level of sophistication that you want, but that is the option that they have. So we use, we have residents and fellows working with us in our private patients. but they're closely monitored by the faculty and only allowed to do procedures that are within their capabilities. You wouldn't put a first-year resident to do cochlear implants. Our chief resident does not do acoustic neuroma. They have not had the sophisticated level training at that point to be able to do that. More senior residents with confidence in the procedure take part in the teaching of the junior residents, particularly at the safety net hospitals. Attending is there, but the senior resident is taking a junior resident through his first tonsillectomy, things of that nature. How do you control residents in surgery? I think it's important as a faculty member that you need to be aware of the residents' level of training and their knowledge at the time of surgery. You need to be able to evaluate that minute to minute how they're doing. You always need to be guarded in what you permit the residents to do. It's your obligation to the patient to ensure they're getting the best care. It's your obligation to the residents that are getting training, but you can't have the residents doing things that are above their level just because they haven't done it before. They need to be ready for that before you can actually let them do this. And this is monitored by the faculty in terms of how things are going. Once I've operated with the resident, I know what they are capable of doing and what I can trust them to do, what I can't trust them to do. And the other thing is you watch for signs that show that they're really unsure. For instance, in otology, the first thing a resident does is grabs a microscope, start yanking around, trying to find an angle. I know they're uncomfortable, because what do I do when I'm getting uncomfortable, even at advanced levels? I start trying to reposition the microscope to get a level. So you can just stay attuned to those type of things, then you can really make sure that your patient is getting the best care. How do you control the residents in surgery? In otology in particular, it's a one-man operation. You have an attending or a resident sitting at the microscope and operating. There's no way for anyone else to get a hand in there to help operate. So you're really sort of stuck there. And how do you control a resident, what he's doing, how much pressure he's putting on the burr? Is he going to go through the facial nerve? Is he going to cut the nerves and the corticosteroid nerves, those type of things? What I say is, you have to develop a voice. It's a voice that's firm and in control, controls the resident without really intimidating. If you intimidate a resident, the performance. So you don't really want to intimidate them. You want to encourage them, but you want to make sure that they're doing what you're telling them to. I sort of think of it as I've done the surgery using someone else's hands and my voice. And if you do that well, and you're careful watching what they're doing, you come out with similar results, whether I'm doing it or an advanced resident is doing it. I think that's really the important part of the training aspect there. And you really shouldn't trust just because you're a second year or third year resident, you should be confident in this. You need to really see them in action and determine their level of competency at that point. Now, what's the rationale for fellowship training? We have 5 years of residency training. They get experience in everything. Well, 50% plus of our residents now go into fellowship programs. And these are 1 to 2 year programs. Some of them feel that may have not had enough work in their program to really feel comfortable going out there doing most of the field. Others don't really want to be a general laryngologist. General laryngologists in our system are sort of slated to the more lower level cases, junior level type cases, the sophisticated head and neck, the neurotology, etc. It's all done by people with more advanced training. So the people wanting to do neurotology, doing stapes and tumors, etc., go to a neurotology fellowship. Head and neck, they spend time in head and neck. Advanced pediatric problems, they spend time with the pediatric laryngologist to do these. Yes, if you're a board certified laryngologist, you're licensed to do all this, but it's not wise to try to do an acoustic when you haven't really done them before. You're going to be very poor because you're paying a lot of money for lawyers, etc., to really get you through that. Fellowship training is generally 1 to 2 years. It depends on the specialty. Currently, we have board certification in neurotology and in advanced pediatrics. Head and neck is talking about doing that, etc. but that is not there at this point. And the cases are done under the direction of an attendee. The residents can supervise at the safety net hospitals without an attending being there, because they actually are board certified at that point. And then they can have extended research experience in some of the fellowship trainees in the country. But the case numbers that they need to perform to become board certified is carefully prescribed by our RRCs. So who, in the international scholar programs, who can participate in this? I personally think this has been a very good experience for our participants. It's best for people who are fully trained individuals already. To come over as a medical student it's interesting for you and you see things, but you're not really using what's available to you there. Coming in as a fully trained individual, you've had experience, and you can see what's been done differently, what's been done better, what's been done worse. You can have a dialogue with the attendees and with the senior residents, etc. And it really, I think, is a very good experience for everyone involved. Unfortunately, there's no hands-on patient care in pretty much all institutions, only self-observation. Then you can work in the labs, etc., with the residents and research attendants. How do we pay for this? We have no funding at our institution for this. We regard this as a partnership with the home institution. I don't strictly want to train someone to come back and compete with universities in private practice. I want to help train people who are come back to universities and then train others there. And so we consider this as a partnership with the home institution. Basically, the home institution will pay for the cost of travel, visa costs, if there are any living expenses, etc. We do not charge the scholars for participation. They come in, we do not charge anything, and they have access to everything that the residents have outside of direct patient care. You can observe, you can drill in the temporal bone labs, all those type of things. So we treat them as residents, except for the fact that they're not operating. I think the benefits is they're experiencing a different culture, a different way of approaching this. Not only surgeries, but a different approach to their career. And I think it also promotes international collaboration and learning, ultimately benefiting our patients. And to me, this has been really important, this international collaboration. I have enjoyed this tremendously, and I think the fellows that I've worked with, we've become friends decades later, seeing each other and enjoying that. So what's the role of mentorship? I think it's extremely important if you want to achieve your full potential. We assign each resident a mentor when they come into the program. I don't think that's the best way. You're better off picking it out yourself, but they know no one in the field at that point. So they're assigned this, and then we give them the first year with this mentor, one of the clinical faculty that meets with them periodically. If they're having problems, helps them design study programs, things of that nature. But basically, once they get to more advanced stages, they may find that they want to change mentors. They're allowed to do that after the first year in the program. But most of them tend to stick with the same mentors. They've developed a relationship with them. But ideally, this is something that you pick out, something that someone you want to emulate that's going to help you chart your course there. And it may be one person for one phase of your life and switching to multiple people at other points. But I think it's really having people offer advice to you, things you may not have thought of that can really expand your horizon that helps. The goal for trainees is getting you to step outside your comfort zone to achieve greater potential. If I had not stepped outside my comfort zone, I'd be on a farm in West Virginia. I do not want to be on a farm in West Virginia. But I think it's really having people push you to think about this, to attempt this, to really encourage you to do this, to let you know that, yes, you are good enough to do this. And that's the important thing of mentorship. Someone who knows that pathway can help guide you in that. And the ultimate goal is, that there is a big world out there and opportunities abound. And you need to take advantage of those as much as possible. When I use the term, you should be opportunists. Opportunist in English is not a good word. It's saying that you're someone that takes advantage of everybody else for yourself. But to me, I think it's someone who is alert to opportunities, takes advantage of those opportunities. You need to be thinking about that and really what you can do to further your career and your abilities, all those type of things. So to me, I see that as a very positive thing in this life. Mentors, I think your success is really developing future physicians. And you really want to develop them and help them go beyond what you've achieved. And I know I've had residents I've worked with, etc., and now they're really well-known professors in the country, in charge of boards, etc. That to me is a success. You gave them some help and pushed them at a point that you were able to, and then allowed them to think about these things, and they kept growing. And to me, that is your role as a mentor, to really help them in their fledgling, help them get onto the path, and let them go. And you really, some people want to hold their people there. They want to bring in a faculty member and keep them there forever because they don't have to worry about that field being taken care of. To me, that's a mistake. What you really want to do is bring trainees in, don't hold them too close, let them expand their horizon. Instead, let them grow wings and fly. And that to me is what really mentorship is about. And I've seen that in a lot of the people I've been trained with, that I've had in the training programs over the years, and it's been very gratifying. So I think in summary here, I think it's important to find mentors that are interested, and you want them that are really personally interested in your success and helping you in your development. You don't want them to be there for their own ego. And I think that's where I've been very lucky. I've had mentors throughout my career that really helped me develop, that really pushed me to do those type of things, and they really became personal friends long term. I think you need to add new mentors depending on your growth needs, where you need to go, what you're feeling uncomfortable with, finding people who may be expert in that area. You need to take chances and step outside of your comfort zone. It's very easy. Yes, I've got my private practice here. I go in, I do 20 implants a month, this sort of thing. But it's really stepping outside what's there and really experiencing new situations, things of that nature. I would encourage international experiences and developing international friends. That's been very rewarding to me. I've learned a lot from them, and I think they've learned from me. And I think when you do this and you see the world professionally, it improves your skills and your thought processes, but it also helps develop tolerance for others, for other cultures, different viewpoints, things of that nature, which to me is ideal, particularly as a professor, to have that sort of attitude. Travel, personal and professional, should improve your life and expand your viewpoints. And I think that is the thing that's really helped me. I've enjoyed people I've come in contact with all over the world. I've traveled like 47 different countries. I've spoken in 37 different countries. And that has been exciting for a country boy from West Virginia. To be doing that has been a very fulfilling life experience. I think your accomplishments, your interactions on a personal, professional level will translate to that of a greater population that you may never suspect. Periodically, I hear something that Charlotte Chong, who is a neurologist in the Philippines, and she's been dean of the School of Medicine there. And she's embarrassed me a couple times on the international scene, commenting that I made some comment to her. She visited me as a medical student. She was on a sort of a worldwide swing. Her father was a otolaryngologist, and he knew my chair at Baylor. And she watched me do a cochlear implant, which she had never seen before. And we were talking about, I think I did some comment, oh, maybe you go back to the Philippines and do the first implant there. Well, she has informed several audience that I told her this, and she went back and became the first implant surgeon in the Philippines. I just sort of want to do this. but to me, you don't know what these interactions really do for other people. I think it's just enjoying the people and being open to them, to me, is the important part of this. So That's all I have at this point. I'd be happy to field any questions that one may have. And I apologize for bringing in personal pictures here, but I thought it sort of fed into the story.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think, especially our students, they got some very important things from your lecture, especially from the summary of your presentation. I think some of them has some questions to you maybe. Soru var mı?
I am at the second year of my medical, and I don't know what path to follow right now.
It's difficult to know. You've got what, 2 of 6 years? You're your second of 6 years?
Yeah.
You've got another 4 years. Even our residents have problems making a decision of what they want to do. They come in and they go on otology, I love this. They go to pediatrics, I love taking care of kids. It's usually after 3 or 4 years when they're ready to make a decision that they come to terms with what they really want to do. As a medical student, you have a lot of experiences ahead of you still, and be open to everything. And you may think you want to be in internal medicine, and then you go to the OR and really are fascinated by surgery. That happens all the time. Many people apply to a residency in surgery and switch over to otolaryngology or switch over to pediatrics at the last minute. So don't worry about making a decision at this point. Be open, enjoy everything, learn what you can from everything, and it will come to you. It's not something that you have to do. Even Tayar was in family practice and then came back to otolaryngology a few years later. So you can still make that switch. If you want to be an otolaryngologist in the States, you've got to decide early on that you're going to publish. To get a good residency program, you need to have some publications anyhow. So you need to form relationships with faculty members that are going to help you get your name on publications. We all do that with them. We know it's important. But forming those relationships as a medical student sets you up for where you want to go, but it doesn't close off the paths. In the US, if you have no publications and you're applying to otolaryngology, the path is closed to you. There are 300 people there with 5, 6, 8 publications and same type grades, etc. So I would say you, at this point in your career, need to be open to everything. Just enjoy it, learn what you can, and you will make a decision eventually. It will come to you. This is what I really would like to do.
So follow your social life also. Everything is not science. You have life and follow your social life also. So another question? Maybe you have.
I'm
sorry. He will finish his medical faculty this year.
Yes.
And he has some articles till now, published articles he has. So maybe he's running on your way.
I was in third year medical school. He was at the time dean of medicine, and one day he called me, Ömer, I want to get to know you. You are doing some researches, and then he invited me to meet with him. That was very important for me. He was the dean of medicine at first time, and after that time, I started talking with him about researches, and now this year I'm thanking for him, and he is letting me be in one of his articles.
So, do you have a question?
I think that's really ideal to involve medical students, to give them some idea of what they could accomplish. rather than saying, oh, you're too young, don't worry about that. You know, doing something like that and then even going and presenting your paper or seeing it in print. I still get a thrill when I see my name in print on a new paper. And I've been at this a long time, but I think it's important.
Yeah, he got me excited about the researches and I will now follow this path and yours.
So you're going to be a dean now?
Another from my residence. Ali, where are you? Maybe you have. You don't have any questions. Okay. Also, we performed research together with some groups of 50 students, and one of them we went together to Milano last. It was in November, I think, and he presented that research in Milano. Maybe you have any question? Not comment? Not question.
You don't have to ask the question you don't want. That's very good to hear.
Thank you. So, any other questions? Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Naya. I'm fifth year in my I want to get into residency in the United States, and I'm studying for my steps right now. I want to ask you, would you look for like qualities for selecting your residents, students, or like what should I do? Like publishing, okay, but does my publishing in Turkey count for United States, or do I have to like publish in the United States also? Like I don't know.
It's very difficult right now in otolaryngology for a foreign medical graduate to get a residency in otolaryngology. Primary care, etc., is easier. Otolaryngology is extremely competitive because you're really competing against people who have 8 or 10 publications, have top-notch grades, they've traveled over the world. They're just unbelievable people. Very intimidating to see their records there, because I wonder, is my record even that good now? I would not really encourage that you're going to get in. I think one pathway, if you really want to do a residency in the US, is to go to the US in a research position for a year or two. And that is one way I've seen people be able to break into it. For a foreign medical grad from anywhere to come in and get a spot, we have 150 very well qualified people with publications, etc., that do not get those spots. So it becomes very difficult. It's even difficult to get an interview. The only way you can usually get an interview is if you've been there for a couple of years, you've turned out several publications in that time, and then that helps. Going to Canada, similar type training, that is easier to get into than the US, but it's still difficult. And then in Western Europe, I think it'd be easier for you to get into programs in the US. I realize you'd like to go to the US, but realistically, it's very difficult, almost impossible for a foreign medical grad to get in unless you've come there and actually worked in an institution and research with good publications, then you become much more attractive.
So you see, work on research and have some articles is very important. That's why I try to push my students and residents to have some articles. It is very important in science. Any other questions? Yeah.
Dr. Ahmed, thank you a lot for your presentation. I think it's very good example to us about breaking our chains and taking risks in life. But my question is very cliche, I think, but I want to ask you this. Would you spend your whole life instead of surgery to, I mean, maybe internal medicine or other residency?
It really is your temperament. If for me, I knew from day one in medical school I wanted to be a surgeon. When I say that, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician when I went to medical school. I liked kids, etc. But I realized in gross anatomy that I could do things that the other people that were colleagues, there were four of us on a cadaver, I could do things automatically they struggled with. You want to see a nerve, I just the long spread it out, there it was. They would pick at it for half an hour and still be mangled. So a lot of it is your temperament and if that's what you need or not. That group, one became a general surgeon. The other two, I think one went into cardiology. I forget what the other one did. It's family practice, but yeah, I knew I wanted to be a surgeon, and I had the skills. I'm not a sports figure. I cannot throw a baseball. I can't do those type of gross motor skills. Fine motor skills under the microscope, I've always been quite good at. So a lot of it is what you feel, what turns you on, what's going to satisfy you here. Resident applicants always ask, what are you looking for in an applicant? And I got one response, I'm looking for hunger. I want for someone who wants to do something beyond where they are now. They want to move up or move to different directions and whatnot. And I think that's the important thing for you. Is it going to satisfy that hunger? When do you make that decision? It's difficult, but it's something you have to come to terms with because you've got another year and you got to figure out what you're going to do. And so but once you've had clinical experience, you sort of get a feel of what interests you. Is it the head and neck anatomy you find fascinating? Is it the cardiac surgery? Is it really diabetes? Is it managing to that? This type of what turns you on? And you have to decide that for yourself. There's no magical figure there. And the same thing with people apply it in otolaryngology. Do I want to be a generalist? Do I want to be a neurologist? Or do I want to be a sinus surgeon? They make those same decisions. And oftentimes they change several times as they go through the 5-year process. Eventually they make a decision and they go ahead and get the fellowships and stick with it.
Another question? Okay, I think there is no more question. So I have a gift for you to remember today.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening and indulging me. I realized this was for patting myself on the back, but I really wanted to show you how the thought process had gone along with that. So I hope, thank you for indulging me in this, and I enjoyed it very much.